You know how experts or mentors will give you advice and then you just won't listen? And then you quickly look back and just say, I should have listened to you. And then they say, of course you should have. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And sadly, admittedly, I'm not the mentor in this story. I'm the dummy who did not listen to all the pros. In this episode of Etsy and Ecom with the Professional Mom, I am going to do a little mini case study on my own print-on-demand shop and talk about international shipping and why so many Etsy sellers on YouTube tell you not to bother with it. If you're new here, hi, I'm Rebecca Boland, the professional mom behind the scenes, which just means that I have been building my own businesses while raising 2 little boys in the comfort of my home after leaving a corporate finance career. I do love working and I love data and I love analytics, but I also love balance, flexibility, and being my own boss. So in my most recent experiment, I have taken 2 Etsy shops and been trying to launch them as successful print-on-demand shops. And I certainly have no experience in print-on-demand, so I've been transparent about everything happening with you through this new podcast. So let's jump right in and talk about why it is often recommended not to bother with international shipping. And then I'll backtrack and tell you why I did anyway and what happened. First off, setting up shipping profiles on Etsy is intimidating for any seller, new or experienced. I know every time I launched a new handmade product when I first started Etsy in 2020, I was getting out my kitchen scale, weighing every item with packaging, trying to overestimate shipping weight so nothing would be returned to me, measuring the sizes of boxes and seeing what items fit into what size boxes I own. And it was a hassle, but it's how I did things to be able to drop everything off at the post office all at once and not have to wait in line and get them all weighed or packaged there. Fast forward to print on demand, which is great because as we get into these shops, we see that the suppliers tell us right off the bat, transparently, what each item and each additional item is going to cost to ship to a customer. And it's often tiered out based on domestic or international for various regions. But you will hear a lot of Etsy gurus say to just turn off international shipping. And there are a few reasons for that. Number one is it is often a very different time frame, of course. So there's obviously a completely different method of transportation needed, often whether it's plane or boat to get things overseas. And I'm talking specifically not just from US to Mexico or Canada, I'm talking more so over to Europe. So you may make something so customized and specialized that a person overseas wants it and is willing to wait. But that overseas trip, even though our technology is great these days, Etsy sellers are not exactly in the mix of being able to pull strings and leverage highly expedited shipping times to other countries. And often you will see products that should be 2 to 5 day shipping domestically, say more like 10 to 30 days estimated to get overseas. So if you do have that super specialized item that somebody would want more than a month out and be willing to wait for, and you think it's worth it to offer the shipping, then don't let me stop you. But a lot of customers that are shopping, especially on Etsy, are shopping for giftable events, and not all of them are shopping more than 30 days in advance. I think a lot of us get used to and probably spoiled by the 2-day shipping that Amazon and now several other retailers are trying to compete with to get products to our door, to get us that instant gratification. So Etsy sellers really have to find other ways to compete. So 1 is personalization, or 2 is that extra special handmade. Maybe you are a wood carver and somebody is willing to wait 2 months for a handmade wooden maple toy box for a new baby. or something along those lines. But a lot of other people may think they're willing to wait, thinking that 10 to 30 days will probably be somewhere in the middle, maybe 15. And suddenly when they're waiting that 20 days, that 25 days, or closer to that 30-day period, they get really antsy and they wonder where their product is. Second reason is that they are also spending a lot more on shipping to get products overseas. So the setup is a little more complicated on the front end for you as a buyer, because you have to make sure that your print provider, A, even offers shipping to the country that your customer is in, and B, you have to make sure that you are accounting for that extra cost. So shipping something internally in the US might be $4.99, but to Canada it might be $9.99, but overseas it might be $39.99. So is that even going to be viable if you are selling a t-shirt, but your shipping cost is 3 times the price of the shirt? Is that so unique and going to be so in demand that it's going to be worth it to even try to market overseas? Probably not. And again, if you're a new seller and you're listening to this episode, then definitely not, because it's going to be more complicated than you realize. Now, I already knew that and I agree with it wholeheartedly. So why am I doing this episode, and why do I have my own firsthand case study? Well, I will admit that in one of my Etsy POD shops, I thought that I had not been offering international shipping, but apparently I had not turned that off. And a few things happened back to back to kind of create the perfect storm here that made me go against my better judgment and accept an international shipping order. So the first is that I had done some product research and I thought I had found a new product niche that had a lot of potential. If you've listened to my episodes before, I have said that one of my product shops is more beachy, fun, summer type niche. And I had actually researched beach towels, and I had seen some beach towels doing incredibly well. They were definitely print-on-demand products. They had bestseller tags even in February before beach season really kicked in, and there didn't seem to be too much competition. So I combined what I knew about some trends that were starting to kick off with towels that I saw doing well, and I felt pretty confident about a product design I put out there. So fast forward a couple of weeks, and I get an inquiry for my towels for a bulk purchase of 10. And this is thrilling to me because, again, I'm still early in this process. I have not hit my first 100 sales with print on demand, which everybody says is kind of that milestone that it's slower to get to, and then you can kind of accelerate from there. So I have this inquiry and I'm talking to the woman. She's very nice. She's pleasant to work with. She's excited about my design. She recognizes that it's unique and thinks it's perfect for an upcoming event. And she's asking me if she can do a bulk purchase and get a discount on a set of 10. So I run the numbers. I look at what my shipping costs would be because I offer free shipping over $35, and naturally 10 towels is going to fall into that. And I put together what I think is a very generous offer of a 30% discount off 10 towels. And towels are not one of the higher margin products. There are not a lot of competitors for print out there right now, which may be why they are not super competitive on Etsy from what I've seen from other sellers. But I figured this would A, close the sale, get the win, B, get me another positive review and some extra stars, some extra social proof, and C, hopefully kick off some traction in this new listing and this new product type to show Etsy that people are loving it. So already from the beginning, I was kind of trying to go over the top, do a little extra from the customer service part of things, and work to make this an excellent partnership deal with her. After working together and finalizing the proofs, she enters the code to make the purchase, and asks me why shipping looks so high and sends me a screenshot. Well, my first sign should have been that the screenshot was not showing in US dollars, but I honestly thought that maybe that was just a personal setting. You can live anywhere in the world and decide to have your settings based on the currency style that you're most used to, right? So I thought, okay, well, I won't worry too much about that part. But then I saw that her shipping price was like $300 or something like that. And I wrote back to her and said that shouldn't be the case. What's the shipping address you put in? And here you go. Here's the punchline. It's to Dubai. So, of course, that's where my heart sank for a second, and I had to establish, okay, throughout this entire process, it did not come up that this would be international shipping. So I've already offered you this 30% off deal. I've already cut my margins way down, honestly, pretty much at cost, just to kind of get the sale. And we both agreed to free shipping on my end, which is part of what I factored in as the cost. And now we're learning that it's an overseas ask. But at this point, I've already designed the products. We've already gotten through the mock-ups. It's literally just clicking accept on Printify to get out the door. So I figure, okay, how can we make this work? At first I told her a couple of times, like, look, I'm sorry about that. I can offer domestic US shipping. If your trip happens to be to the US, we can send it to a hotel there, whatever else. But I just cannot cover, I'm honestly not making any money with this order. I wouldn't be able to cover that. That's just not something I can throw in. I'm really sorry. So we negotiate and she says, well, can you bring the price, are you able to bring the price down of the towels a couple dollars more a piece? And I work through the math and I say, okay, you know what? Actually, I would have been paying whatever it was, $80 for shipping. Let's go ahead and cut that price off of the towels. I honestly can't go any further. At this point, I really am selling them at cost. By the time Etsy takes their fees, I don't even know if I would have been making $1 a piece. But again, I had been really customer facing with her. She had been really friendly. We had been working together really well. So I felt like if nothing else, it would be a sale kind of on the stats line and a 5-star review. So we get them shipped. Everything's looking good. We know it's going to take a little time. And Printify gives me this estimated delivery date of May 8th. Now, that's knowing the final address. That's going to the UAE. It's going to Dubai. It has the customer's exact address. I don't choose anything else. Everything is shipped. But over the course of the next 2 weeks, she checks on the order, which I don't blame her for. The original tracking number that Printify provided, I guess didn't translate over maybe for when it became an international shipment. I'm honestly not positive, but that was one specific issue that came up here is the automatic shipping code that she has clicks on and says, sorry, this is not part of your order, which I can see on my end. And I have to click through to another postal service or company to see the updates. And then I get a message that she is upset because she had to pay an additional $30 or $40 fee to France for taxes. And she was upset with me because I was not transparent about this. And she was upset with me because I routed this through France and it was another surprise fee. But for her, she was already waiting on them. She was already expecting them. She's already paid for them. What is she going to do? Just not pay that fee? And this is news to me on so many levels. So I admit I do recognize that different countries collect tax different ways. And that might be one of the biggest things that you really should dive into in the Etsy seller handbook and country specifically if you insist on selling internationally. But that I would have never have imagined. I am not familiar at all. So if you do live overseas or you are familiar, you might be listening to me and say, of course, everything that goes to Dubai goes through France. I have no idea. But to get a message that she had to pay an additional fee to France to get her delivery, there's no way I could have known or expected that. And again, unforeseen. And I pride myself on complete transparency with my customers. I think reputation is one thing that you really can't get back. And I always love to underpromise and overdeliver. So I don't commit to timelines that I don't feel 110% positive about. I really try to make sure the customer knows everything that can go wrong and knows that I am going to do everything in my power to not let it go wrong, and that inevitably things still happen. But this is not one of the things that I could have even fathomed to list out. So the customer is upset. I'm very honest that I had no idea what that process was. I did not route anything to France. I did not do anything unique here or there. I plugged in an address, and US shipping took it exactly the way that they would route anything to Dubai. End of story. A couple days later, I get a question asking, where is the item? It should have been here. And again, I'm confused because I thought that when she paid all the money to France, that meant that she accepted her delivery. Like, you have to pay the money to pick up your product or whatever else, sign for it at the door. But apparently that wasn't the case, and she was saying no, she had to pay that money. And now I'm trying to understand, and I think she might have had to pay additional taxes before the US even shipped it overseas to France, potentially. I honestly am still trying to kind of figure that part out, because while I can look at the tracking information, it is not that detailed and it is not that helpful. I can see things like, sent for pre-processing, and I originally saw that it should have been delivered by, I think it was actually May 5th. And I am recording this on May 8th. So spoiler alert, this is a very, very recent lesson that I'm still learning as we speak. Because finally, after she's asking, where's my product? I followed up with her. We have a time difference. So I followed up with her a few hours after her message and said, are you sure it's not there? I thought it was received. And she says, I just got it this morning. Thanks. So I think, okay, thank goodness. That was tough. We both learned a lot of lessons, but I think that we handled it correctly. I think she understands that I was as transparent as I could. And I just hope she loves the towels. I hope that she loves the quality. I hope that there's nothing wrong with the print after all this. And guess what? Is that the end of the story? Of course not. Because now it's Thursday. And it's 3 days after this, and I get 3 urgent messages back to back from her saying, hey, where's my delivery? Can you check on your end, please? It's urgent. Where are they? So now I am just floored because I'm looking back at the messages and I'm seeing that she confirmed she got it, but now I'm saying, wait, is she confirming that she got a confirmation from France that they received her extra tax money? Because I pull up the tracking info and it definitely still says in transit. It does not say delivered. So part of me thought, okay, maybe this is some kind of scam that I haven't heard about on Etsy yet. And then I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, no, because I know that I shipped product. I know it went overseas and there's complications. And I know that this does say on the way, but Printify has it on the way since April 29th. And when I click through to the orders, it just says in transit since May 5th. And there is no other detail. It looks like the back end of April and early May, it was all in California facility. On May 5th, it suddenly switched to in transit, which is pretty crazy because originally that was supposed to be the delivery date in Dubai. And at this point, again, it's May 8th, and I have no idea what has happened between May 5th and May 8th today. This is early May 5th, so what is that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. We are almost at the end of business here. That is 4 business days that it is just not accounted for. It doesn't say that it landed in France. It doesn't say where it's in transport to as the next checkpoint. And by the way, I am also getting a message on Etsy for this specific order that highlights that orders over $250 are not eligible for Etsy's purchase protection program. So, of course, that means that this is definitely an order over $250. And I am getting this notice that you should package the items carefully, consider purchasing shipping insurance separately in case of any potential loss or damage, because where Etsy does have a lot of protections for both the buyer and seller, orders over $250 don't get caught in that. So if this box goes missing, if I don't get delivery confirmation, I really don't know what to expect. And like I said, this is a newish shop. I am not making a lot of income right now from it. And to have to cover a $200 to $300 loss of product is going to be absolutely ridiculous and not something I want to have to deal with. However, that is not the conclusion to the story yet. We are honestly still writing the conclusion, but I wanted to get this out so that you could hear live time some of the very real stories that happen and why sellers urge you to think very, very carefully before selling overseas. I honestly thought that I felt comfortable enough with the Etsy platform. I felt like I had the time to focus on this because I was not rushing through a lot of orders. I don't have high order volume right now. And I felt like the relationship I was developing in customizing this product was also going to win a nice glowing review that I felt like I wanted future customers and shoppers to know that a woman behind the scenes was working hard to make things right for them and make things work with them and make things great for their event. And now we're on the flip side and I'm sitting here thinking I might get a terrible review. I've got an upset customer and I could be out over $300 not knowing where the heck these towels ever are. And this has been after weeks of complications along the way, which also means that every time I've been following up with the tracking information and responding to her and trying to work together on any potential speed bumps, hurdles, bulk discounts, anything else, those are all times that I was not spending creating, designing, launching new product, and trying to stay ahead on kind of that flywheel system. So take it for what it's worth. Don't be another one of those do as I say, not as I do type of folks, and just turn off international shipping. Do yourself a favor. It's really not worth it. And now you have another real story about exactly why sellers say that. So if you enjoyed this, or pity me a little bit, but if you enjoyed the information and the help and the guidance, please feel free to subscribe and leave a comment. I also will leave all of my contact information in the show notes below. I would love for you to reach out, say hi. Let me know if you have any similar stories or if you were considering selling internationally. I would love to compile a list of other things that have come up so that more sellers that listen to this can kind of learn from us and we can help each other along the way. And if you subscribe, you'll also make sure to hear those future episodes and upcoming advice for all things Etsy and e-commerce as you build business online in the comfort of your home. Until next time, goodbye.